Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we're learning Bava Kama Daf Chav Tes. We're going to begin on Chav Chesamid Beis by the two dots, about 8 lines from the bottom. So this goes back to our Mishnah, the second Mishnah in this parak on Chav Chesamid Aleph, that if you have a kli that broke in Rosh Hashanah, and there were pieces that were about, and people would have maybe even slipped on the liquid or got hurt by the shards, so the Tanakh say you're chayiv. However, Yehuda says it all depends if you're mischaven. If you're mischaven, then you're chayiv. If you're she'en mischaven, potter. So the Gemara says like this: Hechidami mischaven. What does it mean that you had kavana that you'd be chayiv? So Amar Rabba, b'mischaven l'hoyrida l'matam miksefoi. It doesn't mean that you had intention for the person to slip, to be injured. It means you had the intention to take this item off of your shoulders. So that's what you did. And then it was placed down, so you're a pesheya. So Amalei Abaya Mechlal de Mechayiv Rameir Afilu Nifshara. Does that sound like Rameir, who's even more strict, is even if it's, let's say, just, if it just shatters, in that situation, Rashi says it's an einus. You should be potter in that case. Amalei Ein Mechayiv in Mechayiv Hayrameir feel Ozna Biyadai. Even if, let's say, the handle is in his hands. In other words, if it has a feel nifshram atzmi, if it broke by itself, shel nafal miyadai, it didn't fall from your hand. El nimoicha v'nishar ha'ezin biyadai. You're still holding onto the handle of the cup. So even according to that time, you'd still be chayiv. The question is, it's hard to imagine. When it comes to something which is beyond one's control, the Torah is lenient and it says you're potter. That's only when it comes to if she was forcefully taken and this man had relations with her against her will, so then of course she's not going to be punished. Maybe when it comes to damages, the din is you are going to be chayiv, namely, even if it was an einus. It's not true. We learned that nishbar kadai, let's say the kli broke, v'lo silkai, and you didn't pick up the pieces. Nafal gamaloi, your camel fell down, v'lo hamidai, and you didn't lift up the camel. Rameir mechayiv behazekon. Rameir says you're chayiv. Chachamim oimrim, as we continue Chav Tasmad Aleph, potter medini yadav v'chayiv b'dei shemayim. Umaydim chachamim rameir. Now the chachamim who typically would say that in this situation you would be potter, he'll agree to Rameir, you'll be chayiv b'avdo v'sakinu masoi, if you have these different things, a stone, a knife, a package, shanichan b'rosh gaga, you put it on top of a roof. V'nafal ruach once a normal wind blows it off, v'haziko shehu chayiv. So in that situation, he holds, in that case, you would be chayiv. But the point is that we see that the Rabbanan hold your potter if it's an einus. If let's say you put these jugs on a roof, and it was in the intention for just to dry off, but nothing, they fell baruch she'enim matzui. You weren't even expecting it. It was something which was totally unexpected, which is an einus. V'hazikashu potter. So l'chayra, we do see again over here that everyone holds that when it comes to einus should be rachman patre, even when it comes to damages. El omer abaya betarti pligi. They actually argue with two things: pligi b'shas nefila, and pligi liach nefila. They argue while it's in the process of falling, and also after it broke, after it fell. Pligi b'shas nefila. They argue regarding the time of a fall, because benisko paisheya, where the one who tripped was a paisheya. Marsava nisko poshehu, Marsava nisko va poshehu. The fact that you slipped, are you posheya? Maybe you're not so careful, or not, and therefore you're going to be chayiv or not chayiv based on this principle. Pligu achanafila, but mafkin is zachov. When a person is mafker his possessions, marsaver mafkin is zachov chayiv, marsaver potter. So machlok is whether if you're mafker your possessions, you're chayiv or potter. Mimimai. And how do we know this? That we should establish this talking about two things. Midiktani. Look what the Mishnah says. It mentions tarti, two different things. Chuchuk, echad b'mayim, that's slipping on the water, which has to do with b'shas nefila. Oh, which says or, which must mean it's the second case, it's tarti, shalok b'charsis, which is talking about where a person was mafker these items, whether or not you're chayav or pot in that case. So hanuhach. So l'chayr, it's the exact same case. Elav hachakamer. This is what it means. Chuchlok echad b'mayim b'shas nefila o shalok b'charsis achan nefila. That you slipped either on the liquid b'shas nefila, and the question is nisko pesheya, or shalok b'charsis achan nefila, whether the din is you could be mafker one who's mafker nechasim. Uminamasnisin b'tarti v'risanami b'tarti. Since the Mishnah is talking about two cases, the Bryce is also talking about two cases. The Bishlam Makadoi Mishkachas law. When it comes to this kad, we find this Obishas Nefil Lachar Nefil. We find this in two cases. The Gamaloi, when it comes to the case of a camel, Bishlam Lachar Nefil Mishkachas law b'mafker Nefil Lasai. That you're being mafker its carcass. El Bishas Nefil Hechem Mishkachas law. Where do we find a case where it's Bishas Nefil? Says Rashi. So again, our Mishnah is actually two separate cases, but how do we understand this case of the Gemal? Says Rashi, nisko poshehu. How can you possibly say that the one who tripped is negligent? Mahu yochel lasois. What could he have done? Im niskala behemtoi, if let's say his animal tripped. The bishlam and niskohu. The case of our Mishnah is the person tripped. So maybe you should have been more careful. V'nishbar kadai, ikamemar iboyle nuye, umezi. You should have been more careful. However, the brisa is gamaloi, an animal. So mi ikamemar hachi. Could you say nisko posheya by a gamal? So Ravacha kagayin de avra b'maya derech sarata the nahara. Now what happened was that it went past the water derech sarata nahara. Says Rashi, shigadol hanahar. Kisas in haderech, that the river was getting high and it covered up the road. Uposhehu bekach shiu hoy haderech magula l'niskul gamaloi. If the ground was clear and not saturated with all this liquid, then the animal would not have fallen. Okay. Now hechidami id ika darka achrina. If there's another way that you could have gone, this animal could have gone poshehu. So we should say the lo din nisko. The lake of darcha, there's nowhere else to go on the su, so it's beyond his control. Now mishkachas the askil, the owner fell first. The askila begamla, then the animal tripped on him. Okay, so mafker nezachav my mischaven ika. So that's a great answer. But how do we understand this sheet? Again, there's a difference in kavana or not kavana. If we're saying the whole case is being mafkir and nechasav, what does that have to do with it being kavana? Right? The words of Rabbi Yehuda of our Mishnah don't fit into this whole explanation. So Rabbi Yosef b'mischaven l'zachais b'charaseha. When you chayiv, when your kavana was that you wanted to still have possession over these shards. And therefore, then you're not mafker. Which is mafker. If you are mafker, then you'll be potter, because according to Yehuda, he says that if you're mafker nechasav, then you'll be potter. Which means that you are not mafker, and that's the reason why you will be chayiv. Question 8. Nishbar kad b'rishos harabim. B'chuchal chachal b'mayim u'shalach b'charsis. Rabbi Yehuda omer mischaven chayiv. Maya pirish mischaven Rabbi Yehuda. What does that mean? So mischaven l'shoyver hu dechayiv. If his kavana, let's actually finish this up. My pligi al tanakama libed abaydi omer b'tarti pligi. Okay. So he had kavana to break it, he's chayiv. He's come to exclude that if he tripped, then he's not poisheya. Or he was maschavin l'zachas b'charaseha, which means that he wanted to be kainit, which was not hefker, afuki tefkiran, because which would exclude if it was hefker. The board the chayvi tyra b'hafker rishus of little boyroi. Fine. So that is the explanation. All right. Maybe the same question as TA 17. Let's take a look at it and see how they write it. TA 17. I think it's mamish written the same question, almost identical. Let's see what it says. B'shas nefila b'niskel poisheya. So when it's fallen, the question is, why are you chayiv? Because niskel is poisheya. The trip you're chayiv. When it's chaven, hainu nischav l'shoivra. Your kavanah is to break it. Huyachin nefila pligi b'mafkin izachim ischaven hainu zchus b'shivri hacharsis. Okay. Similar to what we said before. Okay. It looks like exactly the same question again. Let's see what it says here. But my plea Rameir Rabbi Huda Masnisin ubebraisa benishber kadai. So im oimrim takola poishehu olav b'shas nefila. Machlokas gam le'ach nefila in kivein yesh kavana lahaknois v'lo lahafker es a kalim. I think that's actually I wrote that beautifully. That's TB 18. Okay. Right. Rabbi Lezer Oimer, so we have a different opinion over here. Rabbi Lezer. So Rabbi Lezer says that b'shas nefila machlokas. No, the whole machlokas is when the animal when it was in the process of falling. However, avalach nefila my diver kol potter. In that case, because he was mafker it, so there everyone was going to hold that it is potter. So the whole machlokas is whether niskos persheya. Everyone's going to hold your chayiv in that case. If you're mafker nechasim, you're still chayiv. V'yikraban the patri. Elomai b'shas nefil, af b'shas nefil. V'kamash one kid Abaye. It's basically saying the exact same thing as above that Abaye said. Betarti pligi, they argue b'shas nefil, and they also argue l'acha nefil. So basically, it sounds like Rabbi Lezer is basically saying that he holds the same shita as the shita of Abaye. Chaf Tesam base. Okay. For Rabbi Yochanan, no. Li'achan nefila machlokas. The whole machlokas is li'achan nefila. Again, whether if you're mafkin nechasav, whether you're a potter or chayv on that. Avo b'shas nefila ma'idi very kol potter. In that case, everyone holds your potter. Rabbi Yochanan come on. He says later on, which so it means nisko is la pesheya. So lo tema masnis rameir he derma nisko poshehu. Don't say that our Mishnah is that nisko poshe and your chayiv mechalad or rameir mechayiv, which sounds like again rameir holds your chayiv. So apparently it is a machlokas. El my divir hakol chayiv. You're right. It really means everyone holds your chayiv. I Muhammad Kamer Rav Yochanan Kaman lo tema masnis rameir he derma nisko poshehu mechalad pater rabbanon. Sounds like they argue by b'shas tefillah. El hakamashmu and the mafkin zachav. The hacha who the patri rabbanon. Only so the ratio right. They argue b'shas nefila whether this goes pesheya. So how about the seifa? So when a person's mafkin is nechasim, so in that situation only there the rabbanon say your pater the einisu of a mafkin nizachav the alma mechayivi. However, if you're mafkin in general, then you're going to be chayiv. Says Rashi. That chila. So the mafkin nizachav the hacha that chilasu einisu. Because it originated as an einus that it broke. The pater rabbanon of a mafker nezachav the alma, just your mafker your things can go in shehashlichu medas, just to remove it from your mind, can go in bor b'shus rabim mechayvi. So it doesn't make a difference. Even if you're mafker it, you're still going to be chayv, even according to them. Hachakamer lachan afil machlokas. When we really, you're right. Lachan nafil is also machlokas. Klamer high machlokas amul ramer rabbanon, but mafker nezachav lachan nafilahu should chilasa alidei nafila. That's only because it fell down. That's the reason why perhaps there could be a machlokas whether or not now liach nafila what the din is. But alidei hashlocha Lo pligi. If you let's say you just cast it down in that situation, if you're mafkir, you're still going to be chayiv. Lo teidik mereb yochanan mishas tefil lo pligi. Some people aren't going that. Okay, fine. Elo hakamash with the mafkir nizach with the hachal to patu rabbanon the oinisu. Av mafkir nechaz the alma machayiv itmar mafkir nizachav. So now we're going into this whole machlokas lachan nefila. Rav Yochanan was lechad oimer chayiv. Even though you were mafkir the possessions, you're still chayiv for them. The chadam pater. So leiva mandam chayiv karameir. Mandam pater rabbanon. Oliba the rameir kol milo pligi. According to rameir, he has to establish that Rav Yochanan or Rabbi Lezer disagree with his shita. Oh, there's a machlokas. Ki pligi the oliba rabbanon. Mandam pater the pater rabbanon. The one who says that when it comes to possessions that you're mafkir, so it sounds like the shita of the rabbanon. No mandam chayiv. Armalach Anna Diarmafil Rabbanon. Ad kan lo pater Rabbanon. Only time the Rabbanon said your pater elba mafkin is zach of the hacha. As we said before, mishum the einasu, because there was a slip. It was not intentionally. You weren't just mafkir someone stam. Elba mafkin is zach of the alma nechayve. To stayim fine. So mechayve. So again, that's like a raya. There could be a chiluk between this type of lachan nefila, if you're a mafkin nechasif, maybe in that case we're going to say you're going to be pater. However, ba'al you're going to be chayiv. To stein Rabbi Lezer who the omer chayiv. Out of the shitas of Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Lezer we're going to see is the one who says that you're chayiv in this situation. The omer Rabbi Lezer mishum Rabbi Shmuel. He said the name of Rabbi Shmuel, the famous expression, which is Psachim elsewhere, Shnei Devarim and Bershusa Shel Adam. Two things are technically not in your possession. The Ostam Kosav Hil Hein Bershusai. The Turkin says like it's yours. Hil Hein Bar Bershusai Ram V'Chametz Meshesh Shois L'Mal with the Stayim. So when it comes to Chametz Machashay Shois, so you don't really, it's not really yours, but nonetheless because you do own it, you're only Rabbi Yerabbi Yamatzei. So also when it comes to Bar Bershusai Ram, which means if you're a mafkir it, you're going to be chayiv. You're still chayiv. Even though it's bor b'shus rabbi, you're mafkir the bor, you're still going to be chayiv. So therefore, again, and that may not necessarily only be him, it could be even, everyone agrees that you're going to be chayiv in that situation. So me, Rabbi Lezer, hachi. Does Rabbi Lezer really say this? We am Rabbi Lezer. Ivcha, I'll show you he says the opposite. Why? Did not. We learn as follows. Ha-hoifech es ha-galal. Apparently we'll see this later on in tomorrow's daf. A person who is turning around galal, dung. Yeah, so it's on next daf. So Bereshus Rabbim, and you're doing this in the Bereshus Rabbim. You're like you have your own this waste dung, and you're turning it around. But huzik behen acher. And then someone gets injured by a chayiv b'nizkay. So in that case, you're chayiv for damages. That's only if you had kavana for the dung. But if you did not want it, which means you're a mafker the items, then you're potter. Alma mafker nizach potter. Even though he moved it around, which is like digging a bore in the Rosh Hashanah, and nonetheless he still says you're potter. So how could you tell me that Rabbi Lezer is of the opinion that Bor B'Shus Rabbi are going to be chayiv? This is really the same thing by digging around this waste matter in the Rosh Hashanah. It's like digging a pit, and therefore you should be chayiv. Amar Ravada Barava Shechzir Lim Kaima. He's talking about a situation where it was put back in its place, which means that it really like as keel like you didn't do anything. So that's why you're potter. Amar Ravina. Mashal the Ravada Baravel Mahadav a parable. What is the comparable? Compared to Lamoitzi Bor Magula. A person finds an open pit. The kiso you covered up vigilahu, and then you reveal it again. You're potter because it was already before you did anything. Already it was revealed. It was open. So you closed it, but you opened it again. So it's like you didn't do anything at all. So therefore, in that situation, it can be potter. So Mari Lorvina Midami, how can you compare the two? Hasam over there, lo it's stalikuhu maisa rishain. You didn't remove the pit, so that's the reason why you're potter. Hacha it's stalikuhu maisa rishain. You remove the dung, so in that case you should be chayiv. So holo dami elo maitzi bor megula. You found a pit that was open. V'tamama, and you stuffed it up. V'chaz and v'chafra, then you dug it up again. Did stalkul hu ma'aser yishayin. So in that situation, you removed the original status. V'kaimelon b'rshusay. V'kaimelon b'rshusay. And it's in your rishus. El Amar Avashi kishahavcha l'pachas mashleisha. So it means, why are you potter? Because it was less than 3. Says Rashi. Shemitchila lo hegbiya shleisha. You didn't lift it up 3 tefachim. Hilkach lav hagbahi. This is not like you were kind of this galal. Dikabor patuach dam. It's like an open bore. Lo nistam habor mi oilum. Fine. Why do you have to say this seemingly difficult case that it's because it was less than 3 tefachim, but time of the chavin. And the reason why you'd be chayiv is if you wanted to be koinit. But if you didn't want to be koinit, it remains like hefker, then you would be potter. So look l'mal megimel. Why do we say it's even above gimel? Then even though you didn't have kavanah, you're still going to be chayiv. So I'm a Rabbi must nisa kashisa, because our mission is hard to understand. My area hafach. Why does it say the language of that it was turned around? Listening higbiha, say that it was lifted up. It's just coming to tell you that that's what the word means. Hafach is not the same thing as lifting it up. If it was talking about lifting it up above 3 tefachim, that's what it would have said. But instead it says hafach, which sounds like it's something which is very low to the ground, and therefore that's why it's not really a daichik at all. Okay. I'm going to rebel. Fine, we'll hold off on that for 1 second. Question 9. Tanan. Digging up this waste matter, this dung. For so this person's chayiv. Yomer leser lo shanu, when you chayiv, it's only you're a mischavnu zachas behen, that you want to be kind of this dung. So kasher belezer oimer mafker nizachav chayiv v'hachal boy shehei shaloi. Belezer says that if you're mafker nizachav, you're still chayiv. So why are we here to be potter? So he says like this: Rav Ada mastis and mari shachzilim kaima. The reason why you're potter by the dung is because you put it back the way it was. V'havi kamishul nagam alom, you never touched it. Rav Ashi mari kishahavla pachas megimel, that was actually less than 3. Shalostalch meiser rishain, that it was not removed from its original act. Okay, fine. And with Rabbi Lezer, Aimer chayiv, Rav Yochanan Amar potter. So me, Rav Yochanan Hach, does Rav Yochanan really hold your potter when it comes to me mafker the zachav? But Tanan hamasniya, that's a kite. This is chuchis. We'll see this also later on next off. One who conceals a thorn or glass. By goider gidro bekaitzim, a person makes a fence with thorns. The gadar shenafel or shusarabim. You have a fence that fell in their shusarabim. But husik behenachar, some got injured. Chay benizkai. The Yom Rav Yochanan. Now Rav Yochanan says lo shuna ella b'mafriach. That's only, says Rashi, mafriach, if it's sticking out. Roish kaitzay seha b'rishus rabim, that those thorns are sticking out to rishus rabim, heavily bore b'rishus rabim. That's when you be chayiv. Aval b'mitzamtzim pater. But let's say, says Rashi, l'tosh shalo, if these thorns are within his own rishus, heavily bore b'rishuso. V'afal gav dem hifker rishuso, even though he was mafker his own rishus, nonetheless he's potter. So my time of potter, the reason you're potter is because it's like digging a pit in your own domain. Which is mashma, the whole issue of a bor b'rishus is only b'rishus rabim. So obviously if it's a bor b'rishus rabim, you're a mafker, and nonetheless you hold your chayiv. Normally, if you're mafker your possessions, you'll be potter. So say my time of potter. So why are the thorns in your property your potter? Mishum the itmar Allah. It's learned regarding this. Amar Rabbi Ravika of Yishain Darkish the Adam was chachech b'ksalim, because it's not the way of people to rub against walls. Says Rashi, v'zesh is chachech. This person who did rub against the wall, v'huzik mishudahu. He's doing something which is out of the ordinary. However, mafriach, if it's sticking out, it's your money, and you weren't mafker it. And it's sticking out to a place where people are walking. Okay. doesn't really say such a thing. Remember, Rabbi Yochanan is Stam Mishnah. Rabbi Yochanan always holds like a Stam Mishnah, yet look at the Stam Mishnah. Tanan, HaChayfer Bor B'Rishus Rabbim. Person who digs a pit in the Rishus Rabbim, enough of Seichel, Shor, Chamor, Umes, an animal falls into and dies, Chayev. So, what do we see? Alma says, Rashi, Chiyuv the Bor B'Rishus Rabbim hu. We said that actually the Chiyuv of Bor is B'Rishus Rabbim. El Oilum Rabbi Yochanan Omer Chayev. When Rabbi Yochanan Omer Chayev, Rabbi Lezer Omer Potter. Actually, Rabbi Lezer holds Potter. Yom Rabbi Lezer, for the Gemara, as we continue Daf Lamed, Mishum Rabbi Shmuel Chulu. We mentioned already in the name of Rabbi Shmuel that there's two things that are considered like in your Rishus. One of them is Bor B'Rishus Rabbim. Lo Kasha Hadinei Had Rabbi. One is him, one is his Rabbi. We're going to stop there. Let's see maybe another question. Let's see. Okay, we didn't do that yet. Adkan.